This salt that I hold in my hand is copper sulfate. Now, in case you are wondering that how did they used to know? How did I know that this thing is copper sulfate? Let me quickly explain it to this individual. Now, basically, I can decide to take a sample of this salt using spatula, and then I will have this. Now, once I have this one, then I will now carry out salt analysis test on it. When we say copper sulfate, there is basically two sides of it. There is cation, there is anion. Cationic part is the copper ion, and the anionic part is the sulfate ion. So these two together is copper sulfate. We call it copper 2 sulfate, or you just say copper sulfate. So how did I know? So we will carry out a test for the cation, and then we'll carry out a test for the anion there. Now to check for the cation, we basically use sodium hydrochloride and aqueous ammonia to check for cation. So to check for that cation now, I will just bring the sodium hydrochloride. I would have prepared a solution. This is sodium hydrochloride. The moment I add sodium hydroxide and then I get blue precipitate, that is a sign of copper ion. It's only copper ion that used to give blue precipitate when you put sodium hydroxide. Basically, it is light blue precipitate. I can decide to further say, okay, let me confirm if it is really copper ion, and then I add some drop of aqueous ammonia. The moment I add some drop of aqueous ammonia, it gives me a blue precipitate, and if I add that aqueous ammonia in excess, the precipitate dissolves to form a deep blue solution. That gives me confirmation that the cation that is present in this salt is copper cation. Now, to now check for the sulfate, how did I know that it is sulfate? I'll just add barium chloride. Now, this is barium chloride. I add some barium chloride to the salt sample, another sample of the salt, and the hydrogen chloride solution to it. Once I add some barium chloride to it, and I see a white precipitate, then the moment I add hydrogen chloride solution, and then the precipitate does not dissolve, that means the precipitate remains. It is sulfate that used to give this kind of test. So once I compare these two, when I add sodium hydroxide and I add barium chloride, I see blue precipitates and I see white precipitate for the barium chloride. It is telling me that this salt is copper sulfate, and that is exactly how we come to know every chemical substance, because every chemical substance has their unique chemical identity. And by doing that, chemists have found their way to check different things, and then we were able to come up with a full note of every chemical substance. And once you see this, it is actually telling you that is what is present. So don't be wondering that how did they used to know that this thing is this? That is just physical analysis. And then there has been different analysis that has been done before now that makes us to know that this thing is this, if it is given this kind of properties. Now you know how to carry out chemical analysis. Which one do you want to try? Do you want to try out to check if it is really sodium chloride that you are using, or sodium carbonate, or any chemical product that you are using? There is always a chemical test for it. We'll go talk more.